When someone asks you what you value most in life, I can guess what your answer is. The real question is, could they tell what your real values are just by looking at the way you live? You value something important like family, faith, or health, but then realize your day-to-day life doesn't actually reflect it. We all do this, and it's not because we're fake or lack motivation. It's because most of us are not aware and have not learned how to live out our values in our everyday life. In this video, I'll walk you through 3 steps to align your values with your real life. This is part of the same process I use in my coaching framework called the Whole Life Audit, which is a simple, powerful way to identify where your life is out of sync and how to bring it back into alignment. When I say values, I don't mean necessarily those buzzwords like excellence and innovation. Your values are the principles that define your priorities. They shape your decisions, your relationships, your time, and your energy. The way that we can measure your principles is where you are paying attention to things. But here's the problem. Most people choose their values intellectually, but not experientially. They say they value family more than anything, but when we do a real evaluation, like we do in our audit of the real emotional connection that that person has with their children or with their spouse, we see that something doesn't add up. The value that they have isn't really reflected in their real life. They say they value health, but there's no white space in their day for rest or movement. True values aren't what you say you care about, they're what your life reveals that you care about. So how do you know if your habits line up with your values? This is where the audit comes in. And to be clear, the reason that this is an audit is because it's something that you cannot do all by yourself. You need help to do this. Just like someone has to come in and look at all the different spaces and find connections and patterns that you, in the middle of your situation, are unable to see, that's where the Whole Life Audit comes in. Here's a simple 3-step reflection process that we can do right now. I want you to write down your top 5 values in your life, and you can use words that feel life-giving to you, like connection and peace or growth. Writing down those 5 values on one side, and on the opposite side, I want you to look at your actual week and see where your time, your money, your energy, your attention went. What were the things that you were actually investing in? And measure your value by your attention. What were you paying attention to? And notice the patterns. Are they consistent? If you value peace and growth, could you measure tangibly with your energy, your time, your money, where you invested into that in your life and your relationships? And this is where we can see if we're out of line and how we can find alignment. It's by getting into the specific nature of the value that we have and how that should translate into very specific and tangible actions. Now I want you to go back and circle 2, maybe 3 of those top values where you saw that there was some dissonance between the intellectual value that you hold and the way that plays out in your life. And going back to the example of family connection, this is a big one for most people. But I would say, if you say that your family connection is really important, that your connection with your kids is one of the most important things in your life, go back to the interactions that you've had this week with them. Was it completely task-oriented? Were you focused on what needs to be done or what has been done? Were you just telling them what to do? If that's the case, that's the real content of the relationship. So there's nothing there. You can have a close relationship with your kids, but emotionally be 100 miles apart. And that's the way a lot of us live as parents. This is why it's so important to do this kind of work and have someone from the outside help us out. If one of your values is peace, but your mornings start in chaos every day, your next step isn't to completely overhaul your life. It's to create one small ritual or habit that invites peace into your morning. So this isn't about saying everything is bad, let's freak out and change everything. It's about identifying those very specific things where there is a lack of alignment with your value and your daily life, and making small adjustments on this side so that we can be more in line with what we actually value. This alignment happens in very small movements, not necessarily in drastic overhauls. And when your values and your habits actually match, your life starts to feel more congruent. You stop feeling like there are 2 of you, like you have some kind of ideal life in your head, but you're not living out and you're not where you want to be. If this resonated with you, it's important to understand that gap that you're seeing doesn't represent failure, it's feedback. And we can use feedback to grow. If you found some dissonance between what your said values are and the way that you're actually living your life, take a next step today Send us an email, book a discovery call, see if the whole life audit is a step that you could take to identify those areas where you can grow and get the support and help and guidance you need so that you can get to where you want to be. Because remember, your life is already telling a story. Let's make sure it's the one that you want to tell.